The intelligence report landed on Jake's desk like a death sentence. Every analysis confirmed the same conclusion. The Devourers were gathering everything they had left for one final assault on Unity Prime. If the station fell, the Council collapsed, and the galaxy would descend into chaos. The enemy fleet numbered 1,000 ships, including the last remaining Hive Queen. Jake called an emergency council of his senior officers. Kate Sullivan sat to his right, her uniform bearing the scars of a dozen battles. Commander Vorash represented the Draknir forces, his scales dulled from exhaustion. Admiral Sector spoke for the Krillian contingent, his compound eyes showing the strain of months of warfare. And Lisa Hayes attended as Earth's ambassador, though the lines between diplomat and warrior had long since blurred. "We can't win a straight fight," Jake said without preamble. "Our fleet stands at 400 ships. We're outnumbered more than 2-1, and every analysis shows the same result. We lose." Sector's translator conveyed despair. "Then what do we do?" Jake pulled up a hologram of Unity Prime. The station rotated slowly, beautiful and vulnerable. "We give them what they want. We let them take it," the room erupted. Kate leaned forward. "Jake, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. The Devourers expect us to defend Unity Prime with everything we have. Instead, we evacuate the station, seed it with antimatter charges, and turn it into the biggest bomb in galactic history." Lisa stood up. "That's mass murder. The volunteers who would have to stay behind? The crews needed to trigger the charges. You're asking them to commit suicide?" "I'm not asking anyone. I'm calling for volunteers. And yes, it's terrible, but it's also the only way to kill the Hive Queen and end this war." The argument raged for 3 hours. Council law prohibited suicide missions. The loss of Unity Prime, even temporarily, would be a massive blow to morale. The cost in lives was unacceptable. But eventually, Jake's logic won. They had no other choice. The evacuation began immediately. 5 million inhabitants had to be moved off Unity Prime in less than a week. Ships from across the galaxy converged to help, and the station that had been the center of civilization became a ghost town. Jake called for volunteers to stay behind, to be the trigger for the trap. He expected maybe 100. He got 3,000, humans, Draknir, even some Krillians who wanted to prove their courage. Jake interviewed each one personally, making sure they understood what they were volunteering for. A young human lieutenant named Carl Hayes, no relation to Lisa, sat across from Jake with steady eyes. "Admiral, I know I'm going to die. I made peace with that months ago. If my death stops the Devourers, that's enough." Jake approved him and moved to the next volunteer, his heart breaking with each interview. These were the best people the galaxy had to offer, and he was sending them to their deaths. The antimatter charges were massive, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Engineers spent days placing them throughout Unity Prime's structure, calculating blast patterns, ensuring maximum damage. The volunteers learned their roles, practiced the timing, and prepared to face oblivion. Lieutenant Carl would trigger the final sequence. He was assigned to the command center with a small team, their job to wait until the Devourers fully committed, then activate all charges simultaneously. The timing had to be perfect. Too early and the Hive Queen might escape. Too late and the charges could be discovered and disarmed. Lisa came to see Carl the night before the trap was set. She found him in the empty observation deck staring at the stars. "My brother volunteered for this," she said quietly. "He's on the engineering team. I tried to talk him out of it. Did it work? No. He told me that someone had to stand in the dark so others could see the light." "I hate that he's right," Carl smiled sadly. "We all hate it. But that's why we're doing this. Because we understand that sometimes the right thing is also the hardest thing." The Devourer fleet arrived exactly when intelligence predicted. 1,000 ships, a swarm of organic vessels that moved with terrible purpose. They found Unity Prime seemingly defended by a skeleton force. Just 50 ships trying desperately to hold the line. Jake commanded from the Roosevelt, positioned well away from the station. He watched the Devourers take the bait. They swept aside the defenders, barely slowing down, and converged on Unity Prime like predators on wounded prey. The enemy began landing troops, boarding pods attaching to the station's hull. Devourer warriors poured inside, searching for survivors, resources, anything. The Hive Queen's command ship moved into position at the station's center, a massive organic structure that dwarfed everything around it. Carl watched from the command center as the Devourers spread through Unity Prime. His team sat quietly, hands on their controls, waiting for his order. He could hear the creatures in the corridors outside, their chittering communication, their clicking footsteps. Jake's voice came through the secure channel. "Carl, you have command authority. Fire when ready." Carl looked at his team. Young faces, scared but determined. "It's been an honor serving with you all." He turned to his console and entered the activation codes. For the galaxy, the antimatter charges detonated simultaneously, and Unity Prime ceased to exist. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. A flash of light so bright it temporarily blinded sensors. The station, the Devourer troops on it, and 300 enemy ships vanished instantly. The Hive Queen's command ship survived for exactly 2.7 seconds before the shockwave tore it apart. With her death, the biological network that coordinated the Devourer fleet collapsed. The remaining 700 ships lost cohesion, each vessel suddenly independent, confused, leaderless. Jake gave the order he had been waiting months to give. All ships attack, no mercy. No survivors. The Council fleet fell on the Devourers with a fury born from grief and rage. For 3 months they hunted down every enemy ship, pursuing them to the far reaches of the galaxy. Some Devourers tried to flee, some tried to surrender. The fleet destroyed them all. Kate led the final assault, cornering the last Devourer vessel in a nebula near the galactic rim. Her crew was exhausted, her ship battered, but she felt no pity as she gave the order to fire. When it was over, the Devourers were extinct. The galaxy celebrated, but Jake couldn't. He stood in the new Unity Prime, a hastily constructed station that would take decades to match the grandeur of the old one, and stared at the memorial wall. 17 million names carved in stone, every person who had died in the war. He found Carl's name near the bottom, just one among thousands. Jake placed his hand on the cold stone and whispered, "Thank you." The dedication ceremony drew representatives from every council world. Lisa gave the main speech, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "We gather to remember those who gave everything. They came from different worlds, different species, different backgrounds, but they shared one thing, the willingness to stand between the darkness and the light." After the ceremony, a young Krillian student approached Lisa. He was studying human culture, trying to understand the species that had saved the galaxy. "Ambassador Hayes, I have a question. Are humans heroes or monsters?" Lisa thought about the war, about the violence and sacrifice, about Carl and Ben and all the others who had died. She thought about humanity's capacity for both kindness and cruelty, for both peace and war. "Yes," she said finally. "Both, always both." Jake retired from military service the next day. He had done what was necessary, led the galaxy through its darkest hour, but the cost had aged him decades. He returned to Earth, to a small house by the ocean, and tried to find peace. Kate remained in command of the new unified defense fleet. The Council had learned their lesson. They would maintain a military now, always ready, always vigilant. Most of the combat crews were human or Draknir, species that understood warfare, but every species contributed in their own way. The galaxy had changed. 3,000 years of peace had ended, replaced by something more complex. Peace maintained by warriors, safety purchased with sacrifice, unity forged through shared struggle. Humanity's role in the galaxy was finally clear. They were the guardians, the ones who remembered how to fight when everyone else had forgotten. It was a heavy burden, but humans carried it willingly. They understood something the Council had forgotten, and then relearned through blood and fire. Sometimes the only thing standing between civilization and darkness is someone willing to step into that darkness and fight. Sometimes the most terrifying thing in the universe is someone who combines kindness with the capacity for violence, who can be both gentle and brutal, who knows when to extend a hand in friendship and when to make a fist. The galaxy had wanted to know why humanity was the most terrifying warrior race. Now they understood. Not because humans were stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because humans could look at an impossible situation, at a battle they couldn't win, at a sacrifice that would cost everything, and still choose to fight. The human capacity for hope in the face of despair, for courage in the face of fear, for sacrifice in the face of death. That was what made them terrifying. Because you couldn't negotiate with it, couldn't reason with it, couldn't defeat it. You could only be grateful it was on your side. Lisa stood on the observation deck of the new Unity Prime, looking out at the stars. Jake Morrison stood in front of 300 fleet officers and tried not to show his exhaustion. He had been promoted from captain to fleet admiral in less than 3 years, and the weight of that responsibility felt like gravity from a death world. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current strategic situation, and it was bad. The Devourers had hit 7 more systems in the last month. Each attack followed the same pattern. They appeared without warning, stripped a world bare, and vanished before the defense fleet could respond. Billions were dead, and the Council was close to panic. Jake looked at the assembled officers. Krillians with their compound eyes reflecting the light, Draknir standing tall and proud despite their obvious fear, Zinthari in their environmental suits separated from the others but present, and scattered among them humans, his people looking tired and determined in equal measure. "We're losing," Jake said simply. "No point in sugarcoating it. The Devourers are faster, more coordinated, and frankly more willing to die than we are. If we keep fighting the way we have been, the Council falls within a year." A Krillian admiral named Sector raised one of his 4 arms. "Fleet Admiral, with respect, what choice do we have? We're already throwing everything we have at them." "No, we're not. We're throwing ships and weapons at them, but we're not fighting like we need to fight. The Council has forgotten how to wage war, and I'm going to teach you." Starting now, Jake pulled up the first hologram. This is a Council cruiser. Beautiful ship, advanced sensors, powerful weapons, useless in a real fight. The alien officers shifted uncomfortably. Jake continued, "Know why? Because it's designed for show, not war. One good hit to the engineering section and the whole ship goes dead. No redundancy, no backup systems. We're going to change that." Over the next month, Jake tore apart everything the Council knew about ship design. Human engineers worked with alien counterparts, adding armor plating, redundant power systems, and damage control protocols that seemed paranoid to species that had never fought a real war. The aliens protested at first. The changes made their ships heavier, slower, less efficient. Jake's response was always the same. Efficient doesn't matter if you're dead. But the bigger challenge was changing minds. Colonel Amy Brooks, a military psychologist from Earth, took on the impossible task of preparing alien crews for combat. She quickly discovered that most Council species had evolved beyond the stress responses humans took for granted. Amy sat with a young Krillian officer named Tikvar in a simulation room. On the screens, a mock battle played out, Devourer ships closing in, alarms blaring, crew shouting orders. Tikvar simply froze, his body locked up, his mind unable to process the chaos. "It's okay," Amy said gently, stopping the simulation. "Talk to me about what happened." Tikvar's translator conveyed shame in his voice. "I couldn't think. Everything was happening too fast. My body wouldn't respond." Amy pulled up brain scans from the simulation. "See this? Humans have something called an amygdala response. When we're in danger, our bodies flood with chemicals that help us react faster, fight harder, endure more. Your species evolved past that. You think logically even under pressure, which is great for science, terrible for combat. Then how can we fight? You can't, not the way humans do. But that's okay. We don't need you to." Amy pulled up new duty rosters. Jake's reorganizing the fleet. "Humans and Draknir will form combat units. You Krillians are brilliant strategists and analysts. You'll handle intelligence and logistics. The Zinthari are gifted healers and engineers. They'll manage medical and ship systems. Everyone fights the war in the way they're best suited for." It was controversial. Some Council members called it discrimination. Others said Jake was dividing the fleet along species lines, creating segregation. But Jake pushed forward anyway because it worked. The Draknir took to human combat tactics naturally. They came from a heavy gravity world like Earth, understood physical hardship, and had retained some warrior instincts their culture never fully suppressed. Commander Vorash, a massive Draknir with scales like black diamond, became one of Jake's most trusted officers. "Your species and mine are not so different," Vorash told Jake one night over drinks. "We both know that sometimes survival requires violence. The others have forgotten. Perhaps they're lucky to forget. But now they need us to remember for them." Meanwhile, Ben Parker was building something new. The Void Wolves, humanity's first special operations unit in space, were volunteers trained for the most dangerous missions. Boarding actions on Devourer ships, sabotage behind enemy lines, assassination of hive commanders. Ben's teams were mixed species, but mostly human and Draknir. They trained in zero-gravity combat, learned to survive in hostile environments, and practiced tactics that made regular fleet officers uncomfortable. This wasn't clean warfare at a distance. This was brutal, personal, and terrifying. The first major test came in the Thresh sector. Intelligence reports indicated a Devourer staging ground there, a system where they were gathering forces for a major push toward Council core worlds. Jake assembled the largest fleet since the war began, 300 ships fully restructured according to his new principles. The battle plan was complex. The main fleet would engage the Devourer forces directly, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, Ben's Void Wolves would infiltrate the staging ground and destroy their command ship. It required perfect timing, absolute coordination, and a willingness to accept heavy casualties. Jake gave the order from the bridge of the Roosevelt. All ships jump. The fleet emerged in the Thresh sector to find exactly what intelligence had predicted. 2 Devourer hive fleets, over 500 ships, with their command vessel at the center. A massive organic structure that coordinated the smaller vessels through some kind of biological network. The Devourers reacted instantly, and the battle began. Jake watched his fleet move with satisfaction. The ships didn't panic or break formation. Krillian officers fed real-time tactical data to human captains. Centauri engineers kept damaged vessels running long past the point they should have failed. Draknir warriors led boarding parties that fought with a savagery that matched the Devourers themselves. But the cost was brutal. Jake watched ships explode on his tactical display, each one representing hundreds of lives. A Krillian cruiser took a direct hit to its bridge, killing everyone there. A human destroyer sacrificed itself to protect a damaged carrier. The battle raged for 6 days, the longest continuous engagement in galactic history. On the 4th day, Ben's team made their move. 20 small ships, heavily stealthed, slipped through the chaos and approached the Devourer command vessel. Ben led the boarding party himself, 50 warriors in powered armor, carrying weapons designed to kill in close quarters. Jake received sporadic updates as Ben's team fought through the command ship. The interior was a nightmare of organic passages, walls that bled when damaged, and Devourer defenders that fought with mindless fury. Ben lost half his team in the first hour, but they reached the central chamber where the Hive Queen coordinated her fleet. Ben's final transmission was calm despite the sounds of fighting in the background. Charges set. 30 seconds. It's been an honor, Admiral. Jake opened a channel. Ben, get your people out of there. No time, sir. Tell Amy she was right. This is what we're good at. The explosion that killed Ben and his remaining team also destroyed the Devourer command ship. Without coordination, the enemy fleet fell into chaos. Individual ships fought on, but without the Hive Queen's direction, they became vulnerable. Jake ordered his fleet to pursue and destroy every enemy vessel. When the battle ended, Jake sat alone in his ready room and cried for the first time since the war began. 7,000 dead, including Ben, one of the best soldiers he had ever known. 40 ships destroyed. But the Thresh sector was secure, and the Devourer advance had been stopped. Amy Brooks came to see him that night. She had been Ben's friend, maybe more, and her eyes were red from crying. He recorded a message for me. Before the mission, what did he say? That someone had to do the hard things. Someone had to be willing to die so others could live, and he was okay with it being him. Amy wiped her eyes. I hate that he was right. Jake thought about all the people who had died, who would continue to die before this war ended. The Council wanted warriors. They got them. But they're learning that warriors pay a price the rest of the galaxy forgot about. The next day, Jake gave a speech to the entire fleet. His words were broadcast to every Council world, every ship, every station. He talked about sacrifice and duty, about the people who had died and why their deaths mattered. He didn't make it sound noble or glorious. He told the truth. We're fighting so others don't have to. We're dying so billions can live. That's not heroism. That's just what needs to be done. And we'll keep doing it until this war is won. The galaxy listened and finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them all along. Peace was precious precisely because warriors like Ben paid for it with their lives. The emergency signal reached Unity Prime at 300 station time. Admiral Kate Sullivan was in her quarters aboard the Roosevelt when her communicator started screaming. She was dressed and running toward the bridge within 30 seconds, her heart already pounding with adrenaline. New Zenthar had gone silent. A colony world with 2 billion inhabitants simply gone. No distress call, no warning, just silence where there should have been millions of voices. Kate reached her bridge and found her crew already at stations, their faces grim. "Get me everything," she ordered. "Every sensor reading, every nearby ship report, everything." The data came in fragments. A nearby freighter had detected unusual energy signatures near New Zenthar. A Council patrol ship reported seeing massive organic vessels, unlike anything in the database. Then that patrol ship went silent too. Kate felt ice in her stomach. She had read the classified files about the Devourers, the ancient enemy that had nearly destroyed the galaxy 3,000 years ago. Every Council officer had. It was supposed to be history, a nightmare that would never return. She opened a channel to Unity Prime. "This is Admiral Sullivan of the Roosevelt. I'm declaring a Code Black emergency. The Devourers are back. The Council took 6 hours to mobilize their defense fleet." Kate thought that was 6 hours too long, but she understood. The Council had no real military anymore, just security forces and patrol ships designed to look intimidating. Actually, fighting was beyond their experience. She watched the fleet assemble with growing concern. 300 ships, impressive by numbers alone. Council cruisers with gleaming hulls and advanced sensors. Corellian science vessels that could scan entire star systems. Zenthari medical ships prepared to treat casualties. And 5 human ships, small and outdated by galactic standards, but crewed by people who understood what was coming. Admiral Jorkan, a Draknir with centuries of experience, commanded the Council fleet from his flagship. Kate respected him, but she knew his experience was in peacekeeping, not warfare. When he outlined his battle plan in the pre-engagement briefing, her concerns deepened. "We'll approach in standard formation, 3 wings with support vessels in the rear. When we engage the Devourers, we'll maintain maximum range and use superior firepower to overwhelm them." Kate cleared her throat. "Admiral, with respect, the Devourers won't fight the way you expect. They don't care about their own casualties. They'll use suicide tactics, ramming, boarding. You need to prepare for chaos." Jorkan's scales rippled with irritation. "Admiral Sullivan, the Council has been coordinating fleet movements for millennia. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but please allow experienced officers to handle strategy." Kate bit back her response. She returned to the Roosevelt and briefed her own captains privately. "Stay tight. Watch each other's backs. When this goes wrong, and it will go wrong, don't try to be heroes. Just survive." The fleet jumped to New Zenthar 3 days later. What they found made Kate's blood run cold. The planet was gray, lifeless, stripped of every living thing down to the microbes. Orbiting it were the Devourers. They looked like enormous insects, ships grown rather than built, all sharp angles and organic curves. Kate counted 27 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels. The Council fleet outnumbered them 3-1. It should have been an easy victory. The battle started exactly as Kate feared. Jorkan ordered his ships forward in neat formation, weapons charged, sensors active. The Devourers didn't respond to hails or warnings. They simply attacked. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter. The Devourers moved in ways that violated every tactical principle Kate had learned. They didn't protect their larger ships or maintain formation. Small vessels threw themselves at Council cruisers, exploding on impact. Larger Devourer ships ignored damage that should have crippled them, continuing to fight even as they broke apart. The Council fleet panicked. Ships broke formation, trying to flee or maintain distance. The neat wings dissolved into chaos. Kate watched 3 Corellian cruisers collide with each other in their desperation to retreat. A Zenthari medical ship, unarmed and helpless, was torn apart by Devourer boarding pods. Jorkan's flagship was taking heavy fire, its shields failing. Kate made her decision. "All human vessels form on me. We're going in." Her second officer, Commander Pete Nash, stared at her. "Admiral, that's suicide." "No, it's necessary. Move." The 5 human ships accelerated toward the Devourer formation, and Kate felt the familiar weight of combat settle over her. This was what humans understood, what they had done for thousands of years, not the clean, distant warfare the Council imagined, but brutal. Close quarters fighting where victory went to whoever was willing to pay the highest price. The Roosevelt opened fire at point-blank range, her weapons chewing through Devourer armor. Kate ordered her ship directly alongside a Devourer cruiser, their hulls almost touching, and kept firing. Around her, the other human ships did the same. The Valiant, commanded by Captain Ryan Clark, took critical damage to her engines. Instead of retreating, Ryan made a choice. He evacuated his crew to escape pods and set his fusion reactor to overload. Then he rammed the Valiant directly into a Devourer carrier. Kate watched on her screens as the Valiant exploded, taking the carrier and 6 smaller Devourer vessels with it. Ryan's last transmission was calm, almost casual. "See you on the other side, Admiral." The sacrifice gave the Council fleet time to regroup. Jorkin pulled his remaining ships back into a defensive formation, and Kate's human vessels formed a screen between them and the Devourers. For 3 more hours the humans held that line. Kate lost 2 more ships before the Devourers finally withdrew. The Lincoln went down with all hands after taking fire meant for a Krillian science vessel. The Intrepid sacrificed herself, covering the fleet's retreat, her captain staying at his post while his crew evacuated. When it was over, Kate sat in her command chair and stared at the casualty reports. 3 human ships destroyed, 700 crew dead. The Council lost 23 vessels and over 10,000 people, and this was just one Devourer hive fleet. Intelligence suggested there were more. Jorkin contacted her privately after the battle. The proud Draknir admiral looked shaken, his scales pale. "Admiral Sullivan, I owe you an apology." "You were right. I wasn't prepared for this." Kate felt no satisfaction in being right. "Admiral, none of you were prepared. How could you be? You've had peace for 3,000 years. What do we do now?" Kate looked at her remaining ships, battered and scarred but still functional. "You do what you should have done from the start. You let humanity teach you how to fight." That night, Kate recorded a message to Earth. Her words were simple and direct. "They need us. Not as partners or advisors, but as warriors. The Council can't fight this war. We have to do it for them." She sent the message and wondered if Earth would accept the burden. Humanity had spent centuries trying to move beyond warfare, trying to prove they were more than their violent history. Now the galaxy was asking them to embrace that history, to become the monsters everyone feared they could be. Kate thought about Ryan and his sacrifice, about all the crews who had died today. They had given everything to protect people they barely knew, species they had just met. That was humanity too, she realized. Not just the capacity for violence, but the willingness to use it protecting others. The Council emergency session convened 2 days later. The vote was unanimous. Earth would assume command of all military operations. Humanity would lead the defense of the galaxy. Kate received her promotion to Fleet Admiral the same day. She accepted it without ceremony or celebration. There was no time. The Devourers were coming and she had a war to win. Ambassador Lisa Hayes felt her stomach lurch as the shuttle approached Unity Prime. The station was enormous, a ring of metal and crystal that could house millions. It orbited a beautiful blue star, and ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports. This was the center of galactic civilization, and Lisa was about to represent humanity for the first time. She smoothed down her formal suit, a simple black design that Earth's diplomats had agonized over for weeks. Too fancy might seem aggressive, too casual might seem disrespectful. Lisa thought they had all worried too much. She was more concerned about the strange looks her security detail was receiving. Lieutenant Ben Parker stood near the airlock, his hand never far from his sidearm. He was a good soldier, calm and professional, but even he seemed unsettled. The aliens kept staring at him, at all the humans with expressions that were hard to read on non-human faces. Fear, curiosity, disgust. The shuttle docked. Lisa took a deep breath and stepped out into Unity Prime with her delegation behind her. A reception committee waited, led by Commander Veltara herself. The Krillian looked like a giant mantis, standing 7 feet tall with 4 arms and eyes that reflected the station's lights like jewels. "Ambassador Hayes, welcome to Unity Prime. I am Commander Veltara. We are honored to receive Earth's delegation." Lisa bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "The honor is ours, Commander. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity." Veltara led them through the station, and Lisa tried not to stare. Aliens of every description walked the corridors. Tall reptilian beings with scales that shimmered like oil, small furry creatures that moved in groups, chittering to each other, floating jellyfish-like entities that communicated through color changes, and all of them stopped to watch the humans pass. The conference chamber was a massive dome with seats arranged in circular tiers. Representatives from 50 council species waited there, and the silence when Lisa entered was absolute. She felt like a specimen under examination. Security Director Thanecore, A 9-foot-tall reptilian Draknir spoke first. His voice was deep and resonant. Ambassador Hayes, the Council welcomes humanity. We hope this meeting will lead to mutual understanding and cooperation. The next 3 hours were careful, diplomatic, and utterly superficial. The Council asked about Earth's technology, culture, and government. Lisa answered honestly, describing a planet that had unified after centuries of conflict, a species learning to work together despite their differences. She spoke of art and science, of hopes and dreams for the future among the stars. What she didn't mention was war. She didn't describe the weapons Earth had created or the conflicts that had shaped human history. The Council didn't ask, and Lisa thought that was deliberate. The real revelation came later during what was supposed to be a casual dinner with Veltara and a few other key Council members. Lisa was exhausted, her diplomatic smile feeling more like a mask with every passing hour. Ben stood against the wall, watching everyone with professional paranoia. A Zenthari representative, an aquatic being named Korval, who wore a water-filled environmental suit, spoke quietly. "Ambassador, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Your species achieved space travel very quickly by galactic standards. Most civilizations take tens of thousands of years to develop the technology and social structures. Humanity did it in less than 5,000. How?" Lisa considered her answer carefully. "We were motivated. We looked at the stars and wanted to reach them. Competition between our nations drove technological advancement." Competition. Korval's translator made the word sound ominous. "You mean conflict? War?" The other Council members shifted uncomfortably. Lisa felt Ben tense behind her. She chose her words with care. "Humanity has a history of conflict, yes. But we've learned from it. We've grown past it." Veltara's compound eyes reflected the light strangely. "Ambassador, perhaps it would help if you understood something about the Council. About us," she gestured to the others. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy was very different. Species fought each other for resources, territory, survival. Then the Devourers came. Lisa leaned forward. "Devourers?" "An ancient species driven by hunger. They consumed entire worlds, stripping them of all biological matter. They were unstoppable, coordinated, and utterly without mercy. The galaxy fought back, but we were losing. World after world fell." Thanecore continued the story. The Council formed from desperation. 50 species that had been enemies days before united. We pooled our technology, our knowledge, everything we had. The war lasted 200 years. We lost billions. But eventually we drove the Devourers into dark space beyond the galactic rim. After that, Korval said softly, we made a choice. We decided never to fight again. We eliminated warfare from our cultures, our biology where possible, our very way of thinking. For 3,000 years we have maintained peace. Lisa began to understand. And now humanity shows up, a species that still remembers how to fight. More than remembers, Veltara said. Ambassador, would you be willing to share some of your history with us? We need to understand what we're dealing with, the phrase stung. What we're dealing with. Like humanity was a problem to be solved. But Lisa agreed. Over the next week, she gave the Council a comprehensive overview of human history. She showed them art and literature, yes, but also the wars, the conflicts that had shaped her species. She described World War II, a global conflict that killed over 70 million people. She explained the Cold War, decades of tension where humanity lived under the threat of nuclear annihilation. She talked about smaller wars, revolutions, and conflicts that never made the history books but changed countless lives. The Council sat in stunned silence. When Lisa finished, no one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Thanecore stood. He was massive, intimidating, but his voice was quiet. Ambassador Hayes, I need you to understand something. Every species on the Council has a breaking point, a level of casualties beyond which we cannot continue fighting. For the Krillians, it's 10%. For my people, the Draknir, it's 15%. For the Zenthari, it's only 5%. He paused, and Lisa saw something like fear in his reptilian eyes. Your World War II killed 3% of your global population. And you kept fighting. You won. Some of your individual nations lost 30% of their people and still didn't surrender. Lisa felt cold. You're afraid of us. We're terrified, Veltara admitted. A species that can endure that much suffering and keep fighting is beyond our understanding. You're kind to us, diplomatic, peaceful, but we know what you're capable of. We've seen your history. Ben spoke for the first time, his voice hard. You invited us here knowing this? We invited you here because of this, Thanacor said. The galaxy has been at peace for 3,000 years. But peace is fragile. If the Devourers ever return or if some other threat emerges, we'll need warriors. Real warriors. The Council doesn't have them anymore. But you do. Lisa stood, her mind racing. You want humanity to be your soldiers. We want humanity to be our insurance policy, Corval said. We hope we never need you. We pray the peace continues, but if it doesn't, we need to know that someone remembers how to fight. The meeting ended shortly after. Lisa returned to her quarters with Ben, both of them silent. Finally, Ben spoke. They're using us. They're afraid of us and need us at the same time, Lisa corrected. It's an uncomfortable position for everyone. What do we tell Earth? Lisa looked out the window at the stars, at the vast galaxy humanity was joining. The truth, that we're the monsters in everyone's closet, and maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs us to be. She thought about humanity's history, all the violence and suffering that had shaped her species. For the first time, she wondered if it had all been preparation for something larger. Maybe humanity's capacity for violence wasn't a flaw to overcome, but a tool to protect those who had forgotten how to protect themselves. The question was whether humanity could be both. Warriors when needed, peaceful when possible. Lisa didn't have the answer. She just hoped her species would figure it out before they were tested. Commander Veltara stood on the bridge of the Harmony's light, her compound eyes scanning the display screens with growing confusion. Something was broadcasting from the third planet in this unknown system, and the signals made no sense. They were chaotic, overlapping, primitive, yet strangely complex. Her communications officer, a young Krillian named Siktar, turned to face her with visible concern. The signals contained images of violence, explosions, weapons, creatures fighting each other with a brutality that made Veltara's chitin shiver. This was supposed to be a routine survey mission along the galactic rim, far from Council space. Instead, they had discovered something that terrified her on an instinctive level. The planet itself was wrong. Veltara pulled up the environmental data and felt her breath catch. The gravity was 30% higher than standard. The atmosphere contained 21% oxygen, a concentration that would be toxic to most species over extended periods. The star was a yellow dwarf pumping out radiation that required heavy shielding. By every measure of galactic civilization, this was a death world. Nothing intelligent should survive there. Yet intelligence clearly existed. The radio signals proved that. Veltara ordered her crew to move the ship into a higher orbit and begin detailed scans. What they found over the next 3 days challenged everything she thought she knew about life in the universe. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were bipedal, carbon-based, and utterly insane by galactic standards. They had covered their planet with cities, massive structures of metal and stone that housed billions of individuals. They had split the atom and created weapons capable of destroying their own civilization. They had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind, then continued fighting anyway. Veltara filed her report with the Galactic Council, flagging it as urgent. The response came back within hours. Quarantine the system, observe but do not make contact. The Council would debate what to do about this dangerous new species. For 6 months, the Harmony's light remained in position, watching. Veltara became almost fascinated by the humans. They were contradictions. They created beautiful art and terrible weapons. They showed compassion to injured animals while hunting others for food. They reached for their moon while their planet was still divided into warring nations. Then everything changed. Human vessels left their home planet, crude ships powered by fusion reactions that produced dangerous amounts of radiation. One ship, larger than the others, pushed beyond the orbit of their outer planets. It was heading toward deep space, directly along the path that would eventually lead it to Council territory. Veltara faced an impossible choice. Council law required non-interference with developing species, but if she did nothing and the humans continued on their current course, they would encounter Council shipping lanes within a decade. She sent another urgent message to the Council and waited for orders that never came. The human ship was called Endeavor. It carried 12 crew members on what appeared to be an exploration mission. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the vessel, a middle-aged human with gray in his hair and calm eyes that reminded Veltara of veteran soldiers. Though humans claimed to have no unified military anymore, Jake stood on his small bridge, watching the stars through the observation window. His crew was excited, chattering about being the first humans to travel this far from Earth. They had no idea they were being watched. They had no idea their entire species hung in the balance. The meteor storm came without warning. Space in this region was cluttered with debris from an ancient stellar collision, chunks of rock and ice traveling at deadly speeds. The Endeavor's primitive sensors detected the danger too late. Jake shouted orders, his crew scrambling to change course, but the ship was too slow. Veltara made her decision in an instant. She ordered her helm officer to intercept the Endeavor and extend their defensive shields. The Harmony's light appeared on the human sensors like a ghost, a vessel 3 times their size materializing from nothing. Jake's crew panicked. Some wanted to run. Others argued for powering up their weapons, though Veltara could see those weapons were laughably primitive. Jake himself remained calm. He stared at the alien vessel for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He opened all communication channels and began broadcasting. Not a threat, not a demand for identification. Instead, the humans sent every language from their planet, spoken greetings in hundreds of different tongues. They sent mathematical sequences proving they understood universal principles. They sent music, strange and beautiful sounds that Veltara had never heard before, and they sent a simple message in what appeared to be their primary language. We come in peace. Veltara felt something shift inside her. These violent, dangerous creatures from their death world had chosen peace when faced with the unknown. She opened a return channel, using her ship's translation systems to convert her words into human language. This is Commander Veltara of the Galactic Council vessel Harmony's Light. You are in protected space. Identify yourselves. The human captain's face appeared on her screen, and Veltara saw intelligence there and caution, and something else, hope. The human spoke slowly, clearly, as if he understood the weight of this moment. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We're explorers from the planet Earth in the Sol system. We didn't know anyone else was out here. We didn't know we weren't alone. The irony struck Veltara immediately. The Council had spent months debating what to do about humanity, whether to quarantine them or establish contact. And here was first contact happening by accident, because she had chosen to save a human ship from destruction. She made her second crucial decision. Captain Morrison, I am transmitting coordinates to a neutral location. If your species wishes to meet the Galactic Council, have your leaders send representatives. We have much to discuss. Jake's face showed confusion, then wonder, then something like joy. Commander, you have no idea how long we've dreamed of this. Yes, we'll be there. Thank you. The channel closed. Veltara sat back in her command chair, her multiple limbs trembling slightly. She had just changed galactic history. The Council would either commend her or exile her, and she honestly didn't know which. Her communications officer approached hesitantly. Commander, should I send a report to the Council? Veltara considered the question. The Council had been debating for months and reached no conclusion. She had given them one. Yes, tell them first contact has been made. Tell them the humans accepted our invitation, and tell them to prepare. Prepare for what, Commander? Veltara looked at the retreating Endeavor on her screens, that small, fragile ship carrying a species that had survived and thrived on a world that should have killed them. I don't know, but something tells me the galaxy will never be the same.